All right. I want to welcome everyone to today's session. We'll be talking about view building best practices and fundamentals for creating impactful new views. My name's Adam Kurtz, and I'll be stepping you through today's session. Here's today's agenda. We'll be kind of going through the demo today and looking at these different areas of how to build a view. Um, right off the bat, some things to consider before you even start building the view. And then we'll take a look at some of the view building blocks. We'll go into the view builder, the designer, and we'll take a look at what to consider and how to build the view. Some of those areas would revolve around using dimensions and measures and how to deal with time, whether you want to use time range or time dimensions, sorting and filtering, and then how do we manage the views that we have today? How do we archive some views, etc. So today we'll be concentrating on Stratum Data Hub, on getting Stratum out of, or data out of Stratum, and we'll be looking at the actual interface itself today. So building a new view. So here's the interface, the home page. This is our web interface, and this is where we would build the views. Not everyone could build a view from scratch, but don't worry. Many and most of these concepts are certainly applicable to every view out there. So you can always, if you don't have the ability to build a new view, you can take a view that's already built for you and certainly build it or rewrite it and save it as your own view. Okay, so these concepts are pretty much for everyone. All right, so let's start about building a new view from scratch. Here I have my interface on the left-hand side are my different view groups that are available to me. If I click on one, it opens the view group and shows me all the views within the grouping. And so I can certainly run these views from scratch where they are. If I click on one view, as you can see, it returns the data to the screen, and I'm able to start my analytical process. Um, if I wanted to build a new view in this particular group, I can actually, since I'm a view administrator, I can right click on that and select new view. And that gets me into a new view, essentially. You can think of it as a designer, but it's actually the view itself, right? So it's a blank view, has nothing in it. If you notice this area on the right-hand side, you get what we call the View Explorer. And so that's an aid of to help you with the view and all the different properties, menus, and whatnot that you can go into and start tweaking some things once you have the view built. So up to you. There's different ways of doing this. So it's kind of up to you what you think would be the easiest way for you. Um, I tend to use different methods. Many times I find myself coming over here to the View Explorer and right clicking on that and selecting Edit. So this would be one way to add some dimensions to my view. So putting dimensions on my rows and columns is something that I'm able to do. And so before you even start adding dimensions, you want to start thinking about what dimensions apply to the analytical purpose of this view. Is this view a sales analytical view? Is it inventory? What analytical story are you trying to tell the users? What pieces of data are you going to need, and how are you going to summarize it? So, and that relates to the different dimensions and the measures that you'll select for the view. For instance, I'm going to build a year-to-date sales comparison view. So that's my motive here is to build a view that users can use to analyze sales this year versus last. Might include a percent change calculation in there as well. So to kind of keep things pretty simple. I want them to be able to see it at a high level. I want for them to drill down to some sort of region level so they can see where the sales are occurring. I then want them to have the ability to drill to the customers as needed, sold to, Ship to, probably won't include ship to, but certainly that's something you could include. I want to include product family or branding so that they can summarize by product levels. And then finally, I want to include product level as well so they can drill to SKU. So if I wanted to add in any one of these levels, I can type in, for instance, if I want division, I could just type in div and I click in on that. I can either just hit enter or click on the magnifying glass. Either way, it's going to show that there's a division level out there. So I'm going to double click on that to move it down into my selected area. I'm going to continue this. I'm going to go in back in and I'm going to choose a region. So I'm going to bring that down as well. I'm going to choose a customer level. So as you can see, I'm kind of now just easily going in and adding levels to my view, division, region, customer, sold to, maybe product levels like family, and then finally product itself. So these are the views or the different dimensions I'm going to use in my view. I'm going to click OK. You can always reorder these. Notice that I do have arrows over here. So if I want to move something around, I can do that. But you always have the ability to reorder once you're back in the view. Okay, so I click OK. Notice how it adds those levels over here to my View Explorer. So I know that what I've added is right there, and I can eyeball it. Okay. Now the views come with time range already um, enabled. So by default, time range, as you can see down in my properties menu, it's already enabled. It's turned to yes. So I'm going to leave that as is for now. And I'm going to select some measures. Now that I have my dimensions in place, I need to go out and grab some sales measures. So I'm going to right click on my measure items folder and I'm going to add a regular measure item. I can also add calculations, but I need something to calculate first. So I'm going to add in this year and last year's sales. And so I'm going to go into that add regular measure item and I'm going to type in the word sales so that I get all the different measures for sales. And right away I can see actual sales amount, which is what I want. And I'm going to select my time unit down here on the bottom. So here's where you'll select your time range, right? Do you want year to date? A couple things you need to ask yourself here is what time unit do you want to make available to your users? Do you want them to be able to see days, weeks, months? Here's where you're going to, and yes, they can change it, of course, but this is how you're going to roll the view out. So up to you in terms of what you want to do there. Sometimes I leave it at days because days might tell a good solid year-to-date story for you. What's my sales year-to-date, up to today or yesterday's transactions? So I'm going to leave that as days. Now, one thing you'll notice down here on the bottom is I can select my years or I can say leave it as current year. I want this to be always a current year-to-date column. So notice that you can actually, select the year itself, or you can have the view kind of tell, keep the view current. And so the product will actually allow you to do that by itself. I'm going to do that initially, and we're going to go ahead and just put in January 1 as my starting period. My 2 year, again, is going to be current year, and this is going to be today. I could make it yesterday as well if I wanted to. So now I'm going to add that in. So I click on add and notice that over here on my View Explorer, it's been added to my view. While I'm here, I'm going to select last year. I'm going to make this last year as well. And I'm going to add that too, because that's going to be my this year versus last year. All right, I'm going to exit that menu. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Notice how I've been able to add some things. I've never really committed or applied those changes yet. So that's why I like the View Explorer. It allows me to do some things without sending a query. I can add all that stuff. I can define my dimensions and my measures, but I have yet to send a query to the server. But now I'm ready to. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. I'm going to go ahead and query the server. And it's going to then send me my result set. As you can see within the view, I can now see my result set this year versus last. And you notice that I could see that just by eyeballing the data, I am doing better than last year. fairly significantly, but I don't know how to, I don't have a percentage, so I don't know like specifically what that percentage is. And so I'm going to go ahead and add that in. I'm going to add in a calculation, and I'm going to right click right there on that last column header, and I'm going to select add calculated measure item. And this is going to bring up the calculated expression window. I can move that. So if I want to see the stuff behind it, I certainly can move that around if I want to. And you'll notice that it comes with folders of my different components that I have within my view, namely the measures, which is what I'll be using to calculate a percent of change. Another thing I can do is pursue a function that'll do the math for me. And there's my percent of change. So I'm going to click on that function, and then it's going to ask me for a numerator and a denominator. And I'm going to go ahead and select those, this year and last year's sales for that. I'm also going to format it as a percentage. So we want to see this number as a percent sign. I don't think I need any decimals. And then I'm going to name it. So this is the column header, and we're going to call that percent of change. I think I'm ready to go ahead and commit that. If I want to fill that column in with a color, certainly I can do that too and make it pop out a little bit more. All right, let's go ahead and click OK. And there is my percent of change column. And look at that. My demo data is flat. No, it is growing by 30% for both divisions. Now you'll probably never see that in the real world, but as you can see, I can now see what my growth rate is, right? So I've got growth, good 30% growth across the board here. Now, how do I drill? So we've got our dimensions here that are available to us: region, customer sold to, product family, product. Of course, I can always add more on the fly by clicking on that plus sign. That's another quick way of adding a dimension to your view. And it's the same thing as me coming over here and right clicking and editing that. You'll just get a more simplistic menu if you do it from here. Okay, so that's just a great way of adding more dimensions as needed. I can also reorder. So if I want product up here, maybe product family over here, you can decide what your order is going to be. Right. And we have yet to save this view. So we're still kind of designing, but we have, you can always at any point come in here and do a save as and save it away. As a matter of fact, I would recommend that so that you don't lose any work. God forbid your PC crashes or something. You defined all these things within your view and you haven't saved it yet. So just like anything else, save early and save often is always a good practice. All right. Well, I'm not going to do that because for me, it's just a demo, but for you guys, it's production. So it's a bit more important. All right. So drilling, again, I can drill down on the different components. If I want to see food service, how they're doing, I can then click in on that F. It then takes me to region. I can click in on the different regions, like the East region, and so on and so forth. I can then see how my percent of change fluctuates as I drill down to further detail. Okay. If I right click on any one of these columns, I can do a sort. I can simply sort my data for that percent of change column so I can see that frozen entree, frozen individual dinners. These are the top product families for my food service division in the East, right? I can come back and drill in on the West, and the West tells a different story, right? So their top items are a different mix than what we, or at least a bit different. We can see that peaches come in big time on the West side. Okay, I can drill in on both by clicking in on the header. It actually drills in on both entities and gives me a nice looking subtotal report for both the East and the West. At any given moment, I can download this to Excel by clicking on that Export to Excel button. It will then download the data and give it to me in a brand new Excel spreadsheet. So here's where I can come in. I can open that. I can then see that, and there it is. There's my data from that view. Quickly, I was able to get that into an Excel spreadsheet. I also get another page of that download that tells me when this file was created, how many rows and columns are visible, and any filters and sorts are applied would be visible here. And we can see indeed there's our sort on percent of change. So So we know that the sort's still there for our download. So the view detail tab gives us more information about that download, about the data, any filters or that would be applied here would be good to know because it could, it could give you more context in terms of what the data represents for that download. But as you can see, you can download the data very easily and get that data into your, uh, into Excel as needed. Filtering, if I wanted to filter on a given region, maybe I just want this to be the West region, I can right click and apply a filter by selecting filter edit here. So if I right click on that header, I can also come up here to the filter. As you can see, there's a big filter icon up in my menu. If I click on that, it takes me to this menu here where I can then apply that filter here as well. So if I go into my division and I select, well, I just want this to be food service. So I select food service and now it becomes just food service. I click OK. And now it's just a food service view. As you can see, the filter has been applied to division. I now have a filter icon there telling me, and if I hover over it, telling me that I've got a food service division filter there. So this view will always give me just food service. If as I drill through to all the different levels, obviously it's food service all the way, right? If I come back into my filter, I can actually exclude what I selected by simply selecting exclude there. And now it's going to give me the grocery division because that's obviously the only other thing that that is available for that level. But it's now excluding that food service division filter. Okay, so you can do some things tweaking that to either include that entity or exclude it, which is I think a great feature. So, fill in your filters as needed. I can even move that filter. You'll see a view filter area right there. I can move it up there, right? I'm still filtering on food service, but now it's not, it's out of the data grid and it gives me more real estate for the data grid. So, as you can see, and I can do that with West region. So now I'm filtering on both food service and West region without cluttering up my data grid, if that's your intent, right? And I can always move those down if I want to make them part of the report. You can always bring them back down to your rows by dragging and dropping them down. You can also put them up here in your navigational area. This is completely drag and droppable from that area, as you can see. So it's up to you, in terms of how you work with it. It's very flexible. Everything is drag and droppable here in the data grid as well. I just dragged and dropped 16 to be my first column. I could make my calculation my first column. I could put the calculation in the middle if I wanted to. And I think you get the drift on that, right? So coming back into my filters, I can then get rid of that filter by clicking on the X and it clears it out. And now I'm back to square one with no filters. Just my sort going on that percent of change. Other things I might want to do as I drill to, for instance, if I go to product level, I'll make that my first level. So now I'm looking at all the products and across the board, I can see that product, as we can see, there was also some attribute information that came along with my product. So how to, we can add those in. You can right click on that level and you can add in an attribute for any level. So if you want to add in some additional data points, you can get those in pretty easily by adding in the attributes for the in this case, the product level. So adding an attribute. And that's what we have here. We've got product height. We've got the product effective date. Maybe I want the list price, so I'll add an attribute for my list price here. We can see current list price. So I've just added that in and I click OK. So now I've got the list price over here as well. And I can right click that, sort that in descending fashion. So I can see current, who's got the bigger price, the more expensive items in terms of list price. And so that's an attribute. So that's just another data point for a product. And these exist for, all the different levels. For instance, if I look at sold to, just pivoting around here, I can add in attributes for my customers, like what city, what's their credit limit, what country are they in, and I can just add all that in. Okay, so those are additional attributes or different data, additional data points for these different customers. Now I can see the city, who the contact is, what country they're in, their credit limits, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Once we're able to and ready to go ahead and save this away, we can click on the Save As button, give it a name. You can call it sales comparison or sales year to date analysis. So you want to give it a good name, give it something meaningful. You can describe it so you can have this is a view to analyze sales, et cetera, right? So you can write in a good description. Um, and when I hover as a user, this is important. As I hover over that view name, the description will show me. It'll pop up and show me what the description is. So don't underestimate these because it's a great way to define the view and tell the user what the view is going to. What is that analytical purpose of that view? So now you can actually describe it here and make that available. We have three different types of views that you can save away: a personal view, a global view, and a shared view. So if you want to really make this a production view, we recommend to make it global. And that way, all the regular users can't really mess with it. They can't change it unless they're administrators. A personal view is just that. It's your own personal view. You can do what you want with it, whatever you want. You can delete them if you want to as well. But admins can see them. So nobody else can really get to your personal view except for administrators. So it's a great way to have a library of your own views, putting your own different personal spins on your analysis. Or maybe simply you don't have the ability to create a new view, so this is your way to have a library list of your own views. Um, so you have your own little personal touch on some of the views. You can then save them personal. And then shared, what this allows you to do is for the regular users, it gives them a way to share their views. Since they can't create global views, because they're not administrators. So we've given them a way to instead, and the personal views, they can't share because nobody else can see them. So it's a way for a regular user to share their view so that other users can see them and run them too. Okay. So there's the three different types of views that you can save away. The view groups, this is where that view is going to be saved away. So I'm going to select, my sales and profitability view group, and you can select more than one if you think that another view group, maybe it belongs to that view group as well. It's up to you. So, in terms of that, I'm just going to save it away to my sales and profitability view group. And there it is. Notice how the view name actually saved there. I can star it if I want to make that a favorite. I can actually click on that star and make it a favorite. But let's go in and let's run that view again. We can see that you might need to refresh your instance there. But once you do that, then you can come back and there it is. So there's my view. As you can see, I'm hovering over it and it's giving me that short description that I gave it. If I click on it, it runs the view. And yeah, I mean, it looks right exactly where we left off in terms of how we saved that. So, again, you want to make sure that you save it, so that, obviously you don't have to remember what you did and how you built it and all that good stuff. Okay. Now, quickly, if I wanted to use this, instead of using this time range wise, I can actually go in and change time to a dimension so that I can use time as a dimension. So one thing you can do here is change that by bringing up your View Explorer and coming to your measure item. If I right click my measure item folder and I select properties, it'll then bring me back to that view, that option for time range. If what happens when I select it to no. And what it's saying here is that it's going to remove the measure items. So I'll just have to re-add them in, which is not a big deal. All right, so I did that. And then now on my columns, I can right click and do an edit there on my columns. And now I can see all the different time dimensions that are available to me, like my years and my months would be one example, right? Now I need to add back in my measure for sales amount. So I right click on my measure items, go to my regular measure item, and look for that sales amount and I add that back in. Notice that my time ranges are gone. So, there's no time range now to define here for that measure. Let's go ahead and click apply and look at that. So now I've got my years up there on top. They're drillable. As a matter of fact, I'm going to right click and filter just include the years that I want to see. Maybe this year and last year is really all I wanted. So now I did a filter for this year and last year's sales. I can sort this in descending fashion so that maybe I want the most current year up front. And then I've got 2016 sales right there as well. And I can drill in on that. I can then see the months trended out. So this is a great way to build a trend style view. I'm going to close out my View Explorer so you can see the full glory of this. This is a great way to build out a trending view. This gives you your months, your monthly data. It could be daily, weekly, whatever you choose here. But you can make this, as you can see, make time drillable by turning off your time ranges and using your time dimensions. As a matter of fact, I'm going to open up my View Explorer and you'll notice that in my columns is that time dimension, and I can add more to that. If I wanted to add in my weeks, I can stack in my weeks and my days, and put those in as well so that I can drill further down into time. So now I've got my year, my months, and then my weeks and my days are now available. So if I drill into January, it then shows me my weekly data for January. If I drill into week one, it then shows me how the data relates for that week at a daily level. So now I'm able to drill from year to month to weeks and then all the way down to the days. And that's some of the power of using your time dimensions and being able to quickly build these trend style views and then giving your users the options of drilling down to further levels of time. It really gives them, it's easy. It gives them a great sense of trending. And so it's a great way to build out your trend style views as well. And as you guys start, consolidating views and getting more views, users start building more views, etc. Administrators can come up and come to the menu and go into the view menu, which allows them to come in and manage the views. Notice that I've got a lot of views here, don't I? If I go to the bottom here, I can see a number of 619 views. So, and I know that some of our customers have way more than that. So, being able to archive the views or maybe, God forbid you delete anything, I recommend just archiving them to another view group so that you can just hide them essentially from the user base. And if you need to bring them back up, you can. Or we always know a user always asks, what happened to that report out of the blue? Well, this will give you a way to restore the view. But what I like about this menu is for the administrators, it gives them a place to manage the views. It gives them an area to see when the view was last used, so I can sort that in descending or ascending fashion. So as you can see, if I sort that in ascending fashion, I've got a fair amount of views here that haven't been run in several years. Like 7, 6, 5 years, right? So these might be, if I highlight these views, I can highlight them all by doing a select all or whatever, and then I can um, then move these to another view group. So notice how I've got a little icon up there that allows me to select another view group, and I've got one called Archive where I can then select that and click OK, and it will then move them from whatever view group they're in over to the archive folder, essentially hiding them from the user community. Only administrators would be able to see the archive folder. So, this is a great way to go in, see how many views you have, manage them, see how old some of them are, and then, as you can see, you can very quickly move them over to an archive folder to very quickly, move and hide them away from the user community. So, great way to manage all, because again, they'll start adding up, and next thing you know, you got yourself, hundreds, if not thousands, of views to manage and clean up.